guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula One. And thank goodness gracious me, we've had a fantastic race. I cannot believe it. Singapore is actually one of my most favourite recent circuits, even though it was debuted back in 2008. It's certainly been one of those circuits that I've always enjoyed, even though sometimes the racing has been a little bit lacklustre. But this time around, oh my goodness me, did it provide us with some excitement? Abso-bloody-lutely. It was a little bit mundane in the mid, wasn't it? Everyone was just tyre managing their pace. But then when that first safety car came out, people darted in and out the pits there. And then the second virtual safety car period, it really unlocked the race fully. And we got to see some fantastic drives up and down the field. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points though. They're sometimes an offer some drivers to do something extra special during a race, and on the very rare occasion I do award minus points those drivers that do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Crawl Room standings then. They're on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is at the moment. And based on this race weekend's performance, can you see him going up? Can you see him going down? Let's put it this way, I think this is going to get turned on its head based on what's happened this weekend. And yeah, I can't wait to reveal all because there's some dramatic moments ahead, let's put it that way. So without further ado then, let's kick things off with the race winner, of course, Max Verstappen. Oh, hang on a minute. It wasn't Max Verstappen. Are we joking? No Red Bull? He must be on the... He's not even on the podium. Oh my goodness gracious me. The winner is Carlos Sainz. Smooth operator. Smooth operator. What an incredible weekend by Carlos Sainz and the Ferrari team. I thought, they've done well in qualifying. They're bound to throw it all away in the race. But oh no, they didn't. They didn't at all, did they? I cannot believe how well Carlos Sainz has done this weekend. And a lot of people have said it already on social media that I've seen, but that was a champion's drive, wasn't it? That was something that someone that has been in motorsport for quite a long time, that understands Formula One really well, knew how to handle that situation. He knew he needed Lando Norris in his DRS zone in the final few stages of the race where the Mercedes boys were coming at him. He knew that if Lando didn't have DRS, the Mercedes cars were able to breeze past him, and ultimately they would have been able to breeze past Carlos on those much fresher medium tyres, of course. So Carlos reeled Lando in. He was able just to keep Lando within the 0.8 of a second window, so it was close enough for Lando to get DRS, but not close enough for Lando himself to mount an attack. That was absolutely fantastic. He controlled the race brilliantly at the start after getting off the line really well, managing the pace fantastically to the point where teams around him, they couldn't pit because, well, if we pit, we're going to come out last. Such was the closest of the field. There was hardly any field spread. There was a couple of gaps here and there of about 3 and 4 seconds between a car, but most of the other time it was between 1 and 2 seconds between cars, and it would have meant that you pit out a sync, you go the first to commit to the pitting, you're at the back of the grid, or in all fairness, you'd have probably come out around 16th and stuck in traffic. So it was a really interesting dynamic to see how that race would have unfolded had we not had the first safety car period. But as it was, the first safety car period came out. Carlos Sainz pitted, came out in first position, ran the race from first. He just did incredible, didn't he? There's nothing to criticise. As mentioned, a champion's drive, and it's not just me saying that, others have said it too. He was really switched on, and ever since this summer break he's really found something as Carlos. This season has been a season of unluckiness for him, hasn't it? Podium at Australia got took away from him by bullshit FIA with the 5-second time penalty for the bit of the restart that never counted, but it did. You know, and that's just been his luck for the first half of the year. But yeah, he's just been so unlucky. Pit strategy at Silverstone, he got shafted by that as well, didn't he? There's just a lot of things where you think, oh, Carlos should have had a podium a lot sooner than he did. As it turned out, it was just a couple of weekends ago in Italy, and now he's here winning. Back-to-back pole positions as well, let's not forget that. back-to-back podiums with his first win of the season and Red Bull's first non-win of the season. And Carlos Sainz took it, and I couldn't think of a better guy to win the race and to break that duct of Red Bull's dominance. Fantastic stuff. So for Carlos Sainz this weekend, it's going to be 12 points to him, 12 points to Carlos Sainz, and no one's going to doubt me at that. Everyone's going to grant me permission to award him those 2 bonus points because that was incredible and sensational in every stretch of the form. Every single bit of that was just simply perfect. So yeah, congratulations Carlos Sainz on the debut win over the season, and congratulations to Ferrari for their victory and breaking Red Bull's duct. 12 points to Carlos Sainz. Finishing in second place, we have Lando Norris. McLaren weren't pissing around this weekend with Lando's car, were they? Bringing 9 updates to that car. What a fantastic effort by them once again. They did it earlier in the season at Austria, bringing 7 updates to the circuit there, and that really worked out well. And then this race weekend, the car seems to be doing really well this season after those updates at Austria, and they've just slapped on another load of them, and bang, there we go. We understand the car. We know where we're going wrong. We know where to update it. Let's just do it all in one go. And here he is, Lando Norris. A great qualifying performance, a great race. He thoroughly deserved that podium position, and that he did. You know, he was running around in third after the first safety car period because of Charles Leclerc obviously having to double stack, and Ferrari didn't get that quite right, did they? With the traffic management. So he was elevated to third after running fourth for most of the race. And then in the race itself was able to get up to second place, and he's just done really well. He deserved it. He really did deserve it. Lando Norris this season has been one of the drivers of the season after a difficult start to the year. Let's not forget that. There was a difficult start, and it was pure frustration from Lando's part of like, this car's shit. I want to be a podium finisher. I want to be an eventual race winner. It's not looking like McLaren are going to do it for me. But ever since those updates at Austria, he's been a revised and changed man, and so has the team. It's incredible to see. So for Lando Norris this weekend, it's 11 points to him. He's getting 1 bonus point. Again, he played the game well. He knew what Carlos was doing. And at the same time, Lando sort of knew, if I go for an attack on Carlos, I'm going to lose the podium because the Mercedes are going to get me. It was just perfect, and that relationship between Carlos and Lando in the early McLaren days paid dividends in this situation. Yep, they're for different teams now. Ideally, Lando wants a win. Carlos wants another win, of course he does. But they drove smart and realised, look, let's get the podium here, guys. You know, I could go for the win, but if I go for it and attack Carlos, we're both going to potentially finish not winning, and also I could finish off the podium. So it was clever, a mature drive by Lando Norris, and it is 11 points to him. Absolutely bloody perfect once again. In third place, we come to Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, and what could be said for his race weekend this weekend? To be fair to him, it's been okay, but it's not been anything spectacular, has it? Compared to the other 2 up ahead of him, admittedly they have had a better car this weekend as well, but Lewis Hamilton this weekend didn't seem to have the pace over his teammate George, did he? Was out-qualified by him initially. In the race itself, he went wide at turn 1. He definitely should have had to let George back through. I completely agree with that scenario. But I don't really understand him having to let Norris back through. I think that's a 50-50 one, that one. Yeah, he did already have a full car's width over Lando Norris before he was forced off track by George. He was in control of the car at that point, though, and had George not come over on him, then he was always going to be ahead of Lando. So I didn't quite understand that. But anyway, they decided, let's relinquish the position rather than get a 5-second time penalty. So he ran round most of the race in 5th place. Was elevated to 4th as a result of Leclerc having to drop down the order because of the double stack situation. Then they elected in the second VSC period, let's pit both Mercedes. And what a fantastic double stack that was. I was looking at that going, that is fucking spicy. That was so good. It was fantastic. It was perfect. Inch perfect for Hamilton coming in just as George were leading. He gapped it perfectly. They both came out in 4th and 5th, would it have been at that point? Did someone stay out? I can't remember. But either way, they had a lot of ground to make up, and ground they did make up, and they did fantastically well. Then, unfortunately, Hamilton was stuck behind George, And yeah, it was one of those situations where it could have worked, it might not have done. And it was just George didn't quite get the overlap on Lando when it really counted. Hamilton was bottled up behind him, and here we are. Hamilton gets third place, a result of George's mistake at the end of the race on the final lap. But he did okay, didn't he? He did okay. The only other thing I would like to mention is, I know we said I don't quite understand the Norris giving back, conceding the position, but the other one was where Hamilton had to overtake Perez on the much harder compound of tyre, obviously an older compound of tyre as well, where he went round the outside and then went off track and then went back ahead. Now, I saw that and I thought, well, let me have a look at the replays, and he was all four wheels over. So did he complete the move off track there, and should he have relinquished that position back to Perez? Not that it made much of a difference to the race anyway, how it panned out, but that was an observation for me where I thought, FIA inconsistencies perhaps. He has to give one back to Lando that he didn't really need to, but he didn't give one back to Perez that he should have done. Even though it didn't matter in the end anyway, it was just an observation. So for Lewis Hamilton this weekend, I'm awarding him 8 points. 8 points to Lewis Hamilton. Again, a solid weekend. He deserved the podium. It's unlucky that he's not higher up. And, yeah, just a couple of silly incidents at the start there. You know, having to relinquish the positions and the overtake on Perez that maybe he should have had to give back as well. And the fact that he wasn't on pace with George throughout most of the weekend meant that at the end he was bottled up behind him and couldn't go for the win because I think George just didn't quite have it in him to get past. So, yeah, one of those things. But a solid 8 points to Lewis Hamilton. And then we come to Sha-la-la. Sha-la-la, here he is. Sha-la-la in his way into P4. Oh, I don't really know what to say for Leclerc this weekend. Sainz had the measure of him, didn't he? Sainz had the measure of him, absolutely, this weekend. Leclerc fell unlucky with the double stack, but at the same time, Leclerc maybe should have been investigated for falling back as far as he did during that double stack period, because, God, he was holding him up, wasn't he? He was holding him up. He was like 4 seconds behind Sainz when the first safety car came out, which is fair enough, that's just pace. And then in the end, you're like, well, where is he? Where is he? And he's just there crawling into the pit lane. As it was, though, it didn't work out for Leclerc whatsoever, because by the time he pitted, he got a whole row of cars streaming past him, and Ferrari had to wait for a gap, which meant it was like a 6-second stop as opposed to a 3-second. So, yeah, it cost him in the long run, and it sort of maybe mitigated itself, but I'm surprised that wasn't looked at either. Then, as for the race itself, it finishes here in a distance 4th position. Max Verstappen nearly got him at the end, over 10 seconds behind 3rd place. It was a lonely race for Charles, it must be said. After that second VSC scenario, he just tumbled away and couldn't keep pace with the top 3, top 4 even. It was until the last lap, wasn't it? And yeah, Leclerc this weekend's done okay. He's been solid, but Sainz really delivered the goods for Ferrari. So for Sha-la-la, it's going to be solid 7. A solid 7 to Sha-la-la this weekend. A solid weekend, but nothing special is how I would say his weekend went, really. Next up, we come to Max Verstappen.
Come on, Williams, give me a call. I could do way better than Logan. I've scored points at least. Please!
And that's not all for Max Verstappen, because not only is he getting a Latifi of the week, he is also receiving 20 points deducted. He is receiving minus 20 points from myself for his shenanigans during free practice and the qualifying session, where all he did was moan and cry and bitch and criticise the team. This is unacceptable. This is ridiculous. I can't be dealing with this. This is a joke. Blah, 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 cry, mouthing off. And I warned him earlier on in this season, you carry on crying, you're going to get minus points. And here he is at Singapore, a circuit where Red Bull knew they weren't going to be advantageous, it wasn't going to fall in their favour. A bit like Mercedes did a few years ago. Even during their seasons of dominance, the car was good for every circuit except Singapore. And here he is, the Red Bulls turned up, it's not that great. But what do we do about it? We fucking cry, don't we? Yes, we cry, Max, don't we? I could not believe I was watching Free Practice 3 and all he did was cry. Then we watched qualifying and all he did was cry. And rather than focusing on driving the car, he cried. Look at how good that car was in the race to finish P5. after a compromised strategy as well, let's not forget. When that first safety car came out and those Red Bulls started on the hard tyres, it was the worst timing for that safety car. But somehow they managed to get themselves back up there and back into P5, almost nabbing Charles Leclerc at the end there with such a huge deficit of a gap. So the car had something in it, but in qualifying, rather than actually doing something with the car he had and accepting maybe row 3 was the best he was going to get, he cried, bitched and moaned, focused too much on criticising the team, and blew his chances and was out in Q2. I'm sorry, that Red Bull might not have been great this weekend, but it was certainly faster than a pair of Haas's. It was certainly faster than Lawson in the AlphaTauri. Once again, at this circuit, at Singapore, like he did last year, Max Verstappen lost his head. That's how that's happened this weekend. Lost his head completely. And he's lost a podium chance. I think that car was worthy of a podium finish, despite the fact it might have been a handful to drive. I don't think it was going to win, but it was certainly podium worthy. And Max Verstappen did everything in his power to cost himself that. And he has. He's finished P5. Off the podium for the first time this season. Red Bull's first non-win of the season. That probably was going to happen anyway. But yeah, Max Verstappen bitching and moaning and crying. Absolutely, he has a right to be critical and he has a right to ask questions of the team of what's gone wrong. If you turn up and you're in a championship battle, you know, say for example he's in a fight with Carlos Sainz for the championship, you turn up at Singapore and it's a dud car and you're like, well, what's happening here? Carlos Sainz going to get points over us. Absolutely, you need the car to be perfect at every single track, whether you're 400 points ahead in the championship or 4 points ahead. I get it. You need perfection. It's an off weekend though, but you do these criticising and you do the discussion behind closed doors. You don't do it publicly over a team radio and blast the team that has managed to net you 10 race wins in a row, your lowest finishing position of second so far this season. You don't do that. You just don't. I'm sorry, but the team has a right to get things wrong, and you have a right to amend it, but behind closed doors. The team do not deserve the right to be publicly blasted by you because you once again you think you're bigger than the team. So yeah, you got away with it. Also, speaking of getting away with things, he got away with those penalties in qualifying. I mean, what was all that about? Yuki Tsunoda blocked him. 3-place grid drop, that. 3-place grid drop, I'm sorry. Logan Sargeant blocked him. That's a 3-place grid drop. Pit lane, stopped in the pit lane for God knows how long. Bit of a grey area, but I'm sure you could have awarded a penalty for that too. So, we're looking at maybe 9 potential grid drops there. None were awarded. He received 2 reprimands and no further action for Logan Sargeant's one. How the frig does that work? So, yeah, it's fucking bullshit. So, yeah, he escapes penalties. So, how I'm working it is, he's been awarded the Latifi for the overall weekend. He's received minus 10 points for his moaning and has received minus 10 points for not receiving penalties he should have done. He might have got away with it from the FIA, but he doesn't get away with it from me. So it's minus 20 and a Latifi of the week to Max Verstappen because he's just crying like a bitch and I can't be dealing with it. It's all right being philosophical in the press pen when someone said, shut the fuck up, Max, as you got out of the car. You have no right to be blasting the team like you have done. The car they've given you this season has been nigh on perfect. Yeah, you've had a tough round. Yeah, you have a right to criticise the team behind closed doors and say, look guys, we might not be able to have this advantage next season. We need the car to be perfect everywhere. But you don't blast the team over team radio publicly and criticise them as if all they've been doing this season is giving you a shit car that's running around at the back. No, not acceptable. So yeah, Latifi of the week and minus 20 points to Max Verstappen. Finishing in 6th place, we come to Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, of course. Finishing 6th place, solid effort this, solid effort by Pierre Gasly. But it's a case of what could have been for the Alpine squad, isn't it? It really is, with Ocon taking a retirement, of course, in the race. Pierre Gasly this weekend has been solid. There's nothing more to say than that. It's not been any better, it's not been any worse. It's just been solid this weekend. Not much to say about his race either. It's just been okay. It's been okay. He's picked up some more points. And in my opinion, for a weekend like that, he is deserving of 7.5. 7.5 awarded to Pierre Gasly for a decent weekend, but nothing special. I'd say it like that. That's how I would feel the weekend has gone so far. So yeah, 7.5 to Pierre Gasly. Finishing in 7th place, we come to Oscar Piastri. What is your favourite pastry? Well, I mean, what could we say? what could we say for Oscar Piastri this weekend? He started off so badly, didn't it? Getting his lap blocked in qualifying, a red flag, of course, thrown at the end of Q1 due to Lance Stroll being Lance Stroll. And it meant that his lap time that would have got him into Q2, he was out in Q1 and down there. And it's a shame, that really. It is a great shame. Such was the ramping up nature of the circuit. It meant that we saw some surprises in that Q1 session. Yeah, I mean, overall, it was just a solid recovery, though, wasn't it? P17 to P7. 10 places gained is a fantastic effort. Around a circuit you can't usually overtake at. They've got the strategy spot on at McLaren as well, of course. They've just done everything right this weekend. He doesn't have the updates that Lando has either, so yeah, he's done great. He's done a great job as Oscar Piastri, and it's nice to see McLaren have two drivers actually up there scoring the points. And in a race where you think, oh, it's going to be a bit of a dud for Oscar, might scrape 1 or 2, here he is getting 6. He's done fantastically well. So for Oscar Piastri, it's going to be 8 points. 8 points on the cruel room for me. The only reason why I haven't awarded him any more than that, despite the fantastic effort, is just for the sheer fact that I think his lap could have been good enough in the first run anyway, despite the track elevation and the evolution of the track, I should say, sorry. I do think it should have been enough just to scrape him in, so he didn't need to rely on that final lap. But I don't want to take anything away from his fantastic performance this weekend. P17 to P7. One of the drives of the day, really, to be honest. It was such a great effort. And yeah, it is a solid 8 points to Oscar Piastri. Finishing in 8th place, we come to Checo Sergio Perez. Now disqualified on the cruel room anyway, has been for quite a while. And this race weekend, I would have disqualified him all over again if I had the opportunity, because what an absolute sponge he has been this weekend. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe he gets away with what he gets away with. That Red Bull is immortal to punishment, isn't it? So, a lacklustre qualifying, fine. It was the same as Max, I'm not asked about that. First lap, takes Tsunoda out. Full on takes him out. Tsunoda's out of the race on lap 1. Any penalty? No, we don't. Do you know what? We're not going to bother investigating it. Don't worry about it. Don't trouble yourself. Then in the race, he's mediocre, he's average, he's carrying some front wing damage from that incident with Tsunoda the whole race. Then he comes through the charge at the end of the race, through the field, or tries to anyway. And then he's getting onto the final points paying positions, and he just full on rams Albon out the way. Get out of the way, rams him out of the way. Albon loses over 20 seconds trying to find reverse and get himself back in the race. It was lucky he managed to actually keep going. And Sergio Perez receives a 5-second time penalty and 1 point on his licence. Now, that wouldn't be... you think, well, 5-second time penalty is hardly harsh enough. Well, it's not harsh at all, because he doesn't even lose a position. He crossed the line 8th. He stays 8th. Fucking joke. It's an absolute joke. I can't believe that they're awarding such lenient penalties. He cost Alex Albon over 20 seconds and cost Alex Albon and the Williams squad at least 4 points in a championship battle that's so fraught for P7 in the constructors. Don't matter. Small team. Don't give a fuck. And that's how the FIA are. It's a ridiculous one. So yeah, Sergio Perez this weekend. Once again, a bit like Max Verstappen. He lost his head last year. He loses his head this year. We come to Sergio Perez. It's like 2018 Singapore all over again, isn't it? Where he can't stand being behind a slower car, so he rams it out of the way. He got stuck behind Sergei Sorokin, who was doing a far better job that race, and he just shoveled him out of the way because he got pissed off with him. And this is exactly what's happened again. He can't stand it. He can't hack it. I can't believe he's even going to be on the grid for next year. The way he drives like that, it just makes you think, what are you, a fucking rookie? And then to get hardly no penalty for taking 2 cars out of a race... not acceptable. So yeah, Sergio Perez disqualified anyway, stays disqualified. And if I could do more, I would. I need to think of that for next year, how I can make punishments more for the people that have still been disqualified, because that was unacceptable. So yeah, disqualified anyway. There you go. Sergio Perez, get the fuck out of here. In only his 3rd race in a backmarker car, after qualifying in P10 and getting through into Q3, it is Liam Lawson. What an incredible drive that has been by him this weekend. His first ever time racing around the Singapore circuit as well. Let's not forget that. The junior categories that support Formula 1 do not race at Singapore. So that was his first time around that track. And what a stunning job he has done. AlphaTauri have brought updates to the car as well, which would have assisted, but I don't think it would have assisted that much. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. I cannot believe it. Well done, Liam Lawson. He deserves to be on the grid this season. And at the time of recording, There's a bit of a rumour going around at the moment. I don't know how true it is. We'll see how true it is maybe in a week or two's time. But apparently, it's going to go something like this, the grid next year. We've got 3 spaces left available, of course, both at AlphaTauri, 1 at Williams. And it's looking likely that it's going to be Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo at AlphaTauri for 2024, and Liam Lawson going on loan to that Williams seat, replacing Logan Sargeant. We'll see how true that is. I would love to see that happen. I really would, honestly, because if they're hell-bent on having Ricciardo in the AlphaTauri, I wouldn't like to see Yuki Tsunoda go anywhere else, because I think he's done a solid job this year. And, yeah, it'd be a shame for Lawson to miss out. So, yeah, that's the rumours at the moment. See how true it is. But, my God, hasn't he done well? You know, 13th, 11th, and now 9th. In what has been some tough circuits under tough weather conditions as well. Let's not forget Zandvoort, his debut. Thrown in at the deep end with 1 practice session, a qualifying session, and a race. You know, a race with all those tricky conditions. Kept it on the road, made no errors. Then we come to Italy the week after, just missing out on points after once again a solid qualifying and a solid race, no errors. We come to Singapore for the first time ever thinking this is where he might struggle, but if he just keeps it on the road, he'll do fantastically well. Here he is pissing all over everyone and going, yeah, I can score points, no problem at all. He made it look effortless. So congratulations, Liam Lawson, on a stunning drive this weekend. It can be no less than 12 points. It has to be. It has to be 12 points. The first time around that circuit, in a car that shouldn't really be in the points, admittedly, shouldn't certainly get into Q3, come on. Yeah, stunning effort. Absolutely stunning. So yeah, congratulations, Liam Lawson. I want to see you on the grid next year. If you don't, it will be an absolute travesty. Liam Lawson, 12 points to him. Finishing in 10th place is the much improved Kevin Magnussen. The Haas car itself isn't improved, but Kevin Magnussen certainly is. What a fantastic weekend by K-Mag this weekend. He did make a mistake, let's be honest, let's not forget that. He did make a mistake in the race, but did recover to this 10th place in the end and picked up a point, which was realistically the most Haas could have ever hoped for. So the race went, he qualified himself in P6, a stunning lap, a great effort there. In the race itself, he was running around in that 9th, 10th area for quite a while, wasn't he? He was trying to defend from Sergio Perez for quite a while, and Pierre Gasly as well. Tried to defend from Pierre Gasly. There was some kind of incident between the two where he got a black and white flag for forcing Pierre off the track. We didn't see that incident on the live timing. I haven't been able to see a video of it on YouTube or anything since, but nonetheless, K-Mag awarded a black and white flag. He then over-defended after the long straight into the left-hand bend, where he locked his rear tyres up, locked his rear wheels up, and went off, sailing off the track, tumbled down to 15th. You think, well, that's it. Haas's chances of points have gone. The second virtual safety car comes out, or the first virtual safety car, the second stoppage in the race, so to speak, happens. They elect with Kevin Magnussen to not pit him during the second VSC. He gains a couple of positions there, mainly on, of course, Alex Albon, and the Red Bulls had pitted before that as well, so it meant that Perez was behind him. So he was around that 10th to 12th area. And then, of course, he was running round in 11th at the last lap, and then George Russell binned it and meant that he netted himself a point. So, yeah, it was a scruffy way to get a point by Haas and by Kevin Magnussen, but he did it nonetheless. So I'm going to award him 9 points. Maybe generous by a point, despite the fantastic effort he did do of securing a point. That rear locking error, had he not had that issue, look at where Gasly finished, P6. And it didn't matter so much about tyre degradation here this weekend because of the circuit and the stoppages when they occurred. It really meant that it didn't matter so much and you could hold on. So maybe we could have seen a P7 from him, P8 at the very worst perhaps, had he not had that rear locking incident trying to defend from Gasly. But as it was, here he is doing a stunning job, and I'm going to give him 9 points for a much improved weekend by K-Mag, it must be said. So yeah, 9 points to Kevin Magnussen. Finishing just outside the points it is Alex Albon. Oh, Alex. I can't believe it. P8 was on the cards there. P8. I'm sorry, but that's not acceptable. I cannot believe that he has been rammed off by Sergio Perez in the closing stages of that race. And Sergio Perez hasn't received more of a harsh penalty. You know, it's wrong. It's wrong. It's really wrong. These 5-second time penalties are just too lenient. It's a fucking joke. You should have the equivalent of a drive-through added to your race for ruining someone's race by over 20 seconds. Alex tumbled down to P14 after running in P10 when that incident occurred. and he was after Liam Lawson. He'd have got K-Mag. It was already ahead of K-Mag, wasn't it? You know, it's just wrong. It's wrong. It's a fucking joke. Does me in 5-second time penalty that doesn't affect his race at all, and 1 point on your licence. Well, who gives a shit about that? Alex Albon this weekend drove superbly well at a circuit that wasn't going to suit the Williams car at all. Getting into Q2, albeit a little bit luckily, but that's life. That's how it has to happen. First time since 2016 Williams has appeared in Q2, so a little bit of improvement there. Qualifying itself, that was it. That was as good as he could do. And then in the race, he put himself on the cusp of points, didn't he? He drove really well. He drove smartly, drove cleverly, held onto the tyre life well enough. And they decided to pit him onto the second VSC. He was carving his way through the field, and he would have got P8. He just would have done, but it was stopped by Perez. So yeah, absolutely gutting for Alex. Gutting for the Williams squad. I can't believe he's just missed out on points. I mean, even getting taken out of the race and still being able to overtake cars and get on the fringe of points again shows how well he was driving this weekend. So for Alex Albon, it's going to be a 9 points to him. I cannot believe he's had his race ruined, and 4 points have gone begging for Williams there at a circuit where Haas have picked up 1, AlphaTauri have picked up 2. It might not be a lot, but it could be enough. A crazy race anywhere with silly conditions or safety cars or the FIA intervening and putting bullshit red flags in place again. It's all it takes for someone to score a huge amount of points. They could have been 14 ahead of Haas. Instead, they're only 9 now. So yeah, anything's possible in Formula 1, and I think it's a shame that Alex was robbed of a points finish. So yeah, a solid 9 to Alex. Not his fault at all this weekend. Drove superbly well. I'm gutted for him. I'm gutted for Williams. Finishing in 12th place, we have Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo Sauber. So what can we say for his race weekend overall? It was solid, really, wasn't it? It was solid. Out in Q1, but we sort of expected that anyway. Then in the race itself, he had some good pace actually and kept himself inside or in and around the points paying positions. Of course, they didn't elect to pit him during that final VSC because that got him back into the points, and here he is tumbling down to 12th in the end. Perez getting the better of him, Albon getting the better of him, etc. Max Verstappen as well carving through, of course. So yeah, just finishes outside the points. And Zhou Guanyu this weekend hasn't done anything wrong. He hasn't done anything special. And that's why I think it's deserving of a solid 7. People are going to say that's very harsh of me. Not very harsh of me. Overly generous, I should say. But the way I see it is, I think he's done a solid job. He's had a good race. Beat Bottas. What more can he do? So yeah, Zhou Guanyu. A solid 7 to him. Finishing 13th place, we come to Nico Hulkenberg. Unlucky for some P13, unlucky for Hulkenberg this weekend, it must be said. A good qualifying effort, got himself into 9th, the first time since Austria 2022 that both Haas have got themselves into the Q3 session. So that was a good effort. Nico Hulkenberg, P9, his teammate P6, ran together in 9th and 10th in the early stages of the race, and that became Hulkenberg's undoing, unfortunately. That first safety car period, had to double stack. It was very close, he had to stop basically. Hulkenberg was hindered by the double stack because they were too close together on track, and then a slow stop for him as well meant he tumbled all the way down to 15th from 10th, and then that was sort of it really, wasn't it? They didn't pit him under the second safety car period, the VSC area. They didn't bother. It got him up to about 12th or 11th, and he tumbled down the order as a result and finished here in an unlucky for some 13th. A big shame that really for Hulkenberg this weekend. It was nice to see K-Mag pick up points. Hulkenberg came close, but no cigar. But it was good to see Haas up there, at least getting a bit of telly time, wasn't it? So it's going to be a solid 7 for Nico Hulkenberg as well. I think that's fair. I think that's fair for the weekend overall. A solid 7 to him. Was shown up a little bit by his teammate this weekend, but it was good to see K-Mag much improved. And Hulkenberg really still proved that he's got it as well. He's a match for his teammate, certainly, because there were no mistakes from Hulkenberg this weekend. Just fell a little bit unlucky at times. So yeah, solid 7-2, Nico Hulkenberg. 14th place, it is Logan Sargeant, and again, Logan's done nothing this weekend, has he? It's a big shame to say, really, but it is the truth, unfortunately. Nothing at all. His pace was good at the end, let's admit that. He did have some good, strong race pace at the end, but unfortunately, it all came undone when he made the mistake and crashed into the wall, taking off his front wing and causing that first safety car period. He was lucky to keep going, really. I thought the suspension was gone as well, because he did tweak the wall with the front left, but he was able to keep going, picked up a bit of experience, and yeah, okay, he's done okay. You know, what can I do? You know, Liam Lawson's in his first ever race in a worse car. and picked up points. You know, it's one of those, isn't it? There's nowhere to hide now for Logan Sargeant because the other rookie that was doing badly is gone. Liam Lawson's now in, and here he is doing fantastically well. So, yeah, nowhere to hide for Logan Sargeant anymore. And yeah, if rumours are true, Liam Lawson could be coming after that seat. So we'll see what happens there. But for now, disqualified anyway on the crawl room for Logan Sargeant. And if he wasn't already disqualified, he certainly would have been by now. So yeah, there you go. Logan Sargeant disqualified anyway. Then we come to the last of the runners on this list, of course, in the race. And it is Fernando Alonso.
I received a phone call from Helmut Marko immediately after Ricciardo's accident. It wasn't just to offer me a seat, it was to thank me for Abu Dhabi 2021.
There we have it then. Fernando Alonso is awarded his first Latifi of the week of the season, as is Max Verstappen. So it could be all change at the top, couldn't it? Yeah, a weekend to forget by Aston Martin, really, wasn't it? It really, really was. I just cannot believe it. Apparently, Alonso sustained wishbone damage really early in the race, so I was contemplating whether I should or I shouldn't award him a Latifi. But then at the same time, I think if the car's that badly damaged, why is he still running round? You know, there was no chance of points ever since he got that wrong, wasn't it? He went wide on the pit exit and then crossed over the line again, so he got a 5-second time penalty for that. Then they elected to try and stick him on the soft tyres and absolutely bundled that pit stop. I mean, at that point then, stick the tyres on it and just go, call it, cut it, we'll end it there, I'm afraid. 26-second stop, that wasn't his fault, but ultimately it was his fault because of the 5-second hold that he received for crossing the line. So, yeah, a real off weekend for Alonso this weekend. As mentioned, some of it could be down to the wishbone damage he did sustain, but at the same time, there was a lot better drivers doing a lot greater job this season and this weekend. So Aston Martin fell in the hands of Red Bull, really, didn't they? It didn't suit the car, it didn't suit the circuit, and it was their first pointless race for Aston Martin since Mexico last year. So it's a long run that sadly comes to an end, but that's life, isn't it? And Alonso awarded his first Latifi of the week of the season. Maybe a little bit harsh, but you look at the rest of the field and you think, well, some drivers did exceptionally well with the car they had. Alonso, I think, he shouldn't have crossed that white line. Obviously, he shouldn't have done. But had he not done that, he then wouldn't have had the slow pit stop, and he'd have been able to pick up a couple of points, and I'd have been saying, okay, didn't suit the circuit, but here's a couple of points. I'd probably awarded him a 6 or a 7 or something. So there you go. Everything springs back to him going over the white line at the start, at the pit lane entry. And that 5-second time penalty turned into a 30-second time penalty because the team dropped him off the jacks. There you go. Latifi of the week to Fernando Alonso. Then we come to George of the Russell. Watch out for that wall.
I can't believe Haas have re-signed K-Mag and Hulk for 2024. Like, come on, guys. Surely I'm worthy of a seat somewhere in F1.
There we have it, I'm afraid. A Latifi of the week to George of the Russell. But not just that. This is his third Latifi of the week this season, which means that is a final warning for him. He cannot do anything wrong now for the rest of the season, or he will be disqualified. So, yeah, my British bias is clearly showing this race, isn't it? It had to be. It had to be. It was upsetting to see him so upset after the race. It really was. You could tell he'd been crying. He was really had a frog in his throat, didn't he, when he was doing the interview? And I did feel for him. But at the same time, George, it's your second season in Mercedes now. These errors have to end. You're not a rookie anymore. And on the last lap to tag the wall out of pretty much frustration at the fact he couldn't get round Norris and couldn't go for the victory he thought he deserved. That's what happened, wasn't it? It all boils down to that. And yeah, I do feel sorry for him, but I can't be giving him sympathy points here on the cruel room. It's all about being cruel and assessing each driver's performance. And he'd done exceptionally well up until that point. But if you don't bring home the points or the podium that you should have rightly got, then it's got to be a Latifi, hasn't it? It has to be. He'd had the measure of his teammate all race weekend long. He'd had some good pace in the car. He was one of the fastest out there on track. He could have easily, maybe he should have got by Lando Norris, but he couldn't do it. And then he tags the wall. It's the Latifi of the week, I'm sorry. And once again, it's another driver that had a terrible race last season, much like Max Verstappen. George Russell crashed into Mick Schumacher. He crashed into the whole world pretty much, didn't he, last season? Did George. And this race weekend, he's done the same again. He's blown his opportunity. He's blown his chance. So it's been a very mixed season for George Russell this season. He's had some unlucky moments, the engine failure at Australia and the pit stop where the safety car was called at Silverstone didn't fall his way, sadly. But this race weekend and others previously, he's had poor qualifyings, but then when he's had good qualifyings, he's thrown it away in the race. So, big shame for George Russell. A Latifi of the week and a final warning to him. Can you believe we're saying that for someone that was in contention of winning the championship last season, the Crawl Room Championship? Crazy. There you go. George of the Russell. Latifi of the week. Then we come to Valtteri Bottas. The thinnest of thin ice is Valtteri. Will I disqualify him now? I'm not going to. He survives for one more race. He really does. Started on the race on the hard tyre. The safety car period came out at the wrong time for his strategy, as it did for the Red Bulls. So that meant that he tumbled down the order back to last again before he'd even had the pit stop. He finally decided to pit for the medium tyres, was running all on his own on the medium compound, and then his car expired. So that netted him a DNF. And I think, yeah, you know, Joe's done a good job this weekend. Yeah, he was out-qualified and out-raced by him. But Bottas was on the compromise strategy and did break down. So, as much as I think had he crossed the line in a lowly grid position, I would have disqualified him because of the DNF at the end and such as the nature of that crazy last virtual safety car period. Maybe, just maybe, he could have done a little bit better. I don't know. We didn't see it. He broke down in the end, so he survives for just one more race. But will it all come undone at Japan? We'll have to wait and see. But for now, I am going to award Bottas a solitary point. Bearing in mind, retirements can only score a maximum of 5 on their races. Unfortunately, that's just the rules I make. I don't think it's fair to award them 10s, despite the fact however well they might have done. It's 1 point to Valtteri Bottas this weekend, out of a maximum of 5 for a retirement, because it was a lacklustre performance, but just not quite disqualification worthy. But he is on the thinnest of thin ice. He really, really is. 1 point to Bottas. Then we come to Esteban Ocon. Oh, I can't believe it. Esti Bestie on his bestie birthday. Oh no. He was driving so well, wasn't he? P6 before all the dramas happened ahead. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, oh, wow. You know, he caused the virtual safety car period, of course, for breaking down, which wasn't his fault. Of course it wasn't. But wow. What could have been? What could have been? Admittedly, probably the best it could have been was a solid P6 finish, but he drove so well to get there. He really, really did. And he's done a good effort once again, and it's a shame to see Alpine miss out on what would have been an easy double points finish for them with a 6th and 8th, no doubt. Maybe the Red Bulls would have made progress anyway, despite the virtual safety car period intervention. So maybe it would have been 7th and 9th. But still, it should have been a good all of points for Alpine, and it should have been a double points finish. But reliability creeps in once again. Esteban Ocon didn't really do anything wrong this weekend. And for me personally, it's going to be a middle of the road 5, which is the maximum I can score a retirement. Esti Bestie, I'm gutted for him. I really am. A tough pill to swallow. Some drivers have had some fantastic races this weekend, and then others have had races that were going well and then went wrong, and it's just been an up and down one, isn't it? There's mixed emotions in the paddock. There's no one that's fairly happy. There's either drivers that are on cloud 9 with their results, or drivers that are absolutely devastated and, you know, down in the gutter, unfortunately, because of what happened to them. Esteban Ocon is unfortunately one of them, but it wasn't his fault. A maximum of 5 to Esteban Ocon. Then we come to the last retirement on this list, the first in the race, of course, and it is Yuki Tsunoda. Now, what could be said for his race weekend overall? He was blocked in qualifying in that Q2 session by Max Verstappen. The team principal didn't even bother turning up, which meant that no penalty could be awarded, but that's life, isn't it? AlphaTauri Red Bull bosom chums. Yuki Tsunoda then, on his last push lap in Q2, made a mistake, which meant he set no lap at all and started in the 15th in the race. Got himself up and involved with Sergio Perez, who was 13th, so Tsunoda effectively gained a couple of places. And then he got punted off by Sergio Perez and out on lap 1 with massive side pod damage and rear suspension arms and everything had completely gone AWOL on the rear quarter. So, yeah, wasn't his fault that at all, Yuki Tsunoda. A tough pill to swallow for Yuki, especially when Liam Lawson scored points. Yuki had a good start to get himself up there into that 13th place before getting clobbered by the unpunishable Sergio Perez. Yeah, what could have been? It could have been a point, you know. It could have been a 9th and 10th for AlphaTauri, absolutely. Tsunoda already got himself into 13th. He'd have carried on making progress or got stuck in that crocodile. Could have gone for the medium tyres at the end there and maybe, just maybe, scraped himself a point. But he was out on lap 1. It was too early to say. Out of the maximum of 5 I can score Tsunoda, I am going to award him 3. 3 points to Yuki Tsunoda, and unfortunately I have to knock him a couple off because the qualifying performance, although it was blocked by Max Verstappen in the unpunishable Red Bull, yeah, it was blocked by him, but he also had another run, another opportunity to get himself into Q3. Couldn't quite manage it. If not, he could have certainly got a better grid position in Q2 that then would have got him out of the danger zone where he got wiped out by Perez. So, yeah, unfortunate for Yuki Tsunoda this weekend. I hope he is signed for next year, because as much as I didn't rate him in 2021 or 2022 and said he needs to go, this season has proved that 3 seasons in the sport you can really turn a corner, and Yuki Tsunoda has. He has turned a corner. He's done great. He's done a great job. And this weekend I think it's undermined because of Liam Lawson's performance, but Tsunoda just fell unlucky this time around. So yeah, 3 points to Yuki. Then we come to the last driver, of course. He didn't even race. That's how good he is. It's Lance Stroll. Now, what the fucking hell am I going to do with him? He's disqualified anyway on the cruel room. He was the first driver to do so. I don't know what on earth I can do with him. Like, what on earth is he doing? Yeah, it was a big shunt. I'm glad he's okay in qualifying. But 3/10 down in Sector 2 on Bottas, who was on the cusp of getting knocked out. Like, you're in an Aston Martin. The circuit is ramping up massively. You're 3/10 behind Valtteri Bottas in Sector 2. And then you still decide that you're going to drive like a plum in the final sector, flying here, there and everywhere, and sticking it in the wall like you do. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. I don't think he retired from the race or withdrew from the race because he was sore from the accident. I think he was sore from getting a beating from his dad, because that was fucking dreadful. Like, I just cannot believe him. I really can't. As mentioned, I'm glad he's okay. It was a big shunt, absolutely. I'm glad he's okay. But he needs to go now. He really needs to go. This is just dangerous. He's silly. It's to the point where he's not got the pace. He's not got the performance. I mean, he qualified last time out as well, for no good reason. And then this race, he's running. He was last anyway. He wasn't going to beat Bottas' time to get into Q2 when he should have done. And despite just thinking, look, let me back off, let me have a shit qualifying, I'll be 20th, I'm 3/10 down in Bottas, I'm not going to make it up in the final sector, let me just pit. No, he goes stupid, goes fully round the final corner and stuffs it in the wall like a dick. Yeah, very frustrating. Mike Crack said he was a future champion. People obviously then said, oh, well, hang on a minute, Mike, what do you think about this accident? And he went, oh, it proves he's got it. It proves he's got it because it shows that he's committed. Because of that commitment, he went round that corner. No, it proves he's fucking brain dead, Mike Crack. And you're talking out of your crack, I'll tell you that much. Fucking ridiculous, Mike. He can't. He's got a gun to his head, hasn't he? He's got a gun to his head. Lawrence Stroll's like, say something nice about my son. And Mike Crack's going, oh, well, you know, he did really try hard. And, you know, that commitment round that corner proves he's got the ability. It really does. No, lack of ability. You can't be 3/10 down in Sector 2 trying to go through into Q2 on a lap time on a circuit that has massively improved. You can't be down. You can't be down on an Alfa Romeo and an Aston Martin. That's not possible. But forget that. Rather than saying, oh, his commitment round the corner was good. No, it wasn't. It was fucking stupid. Stupid. He made a mistake in the previous corner and he got it all wrong in the final corner. Back out of it, abort your lap, and that's the sensible driver. No, commitment is not sensible in this time around. So Lance Stroll disqualified anyway. Don't know what Warwick can do to him. Just absolute reject. And there we go. So everything, guys, those were the runners and riders of the Singapore Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high? Any too low? The updated standings are on the screen now for you to take a look at, and look at that. All change. Max Verstappen tumbles down to the latter half of the first side. Fernando Alonso just clings on to a lead now. He was running second, wasn't he? But elevates himself to first just. Yuki Tsunoda chomping at the bit, as is Alex Albon. Unbelievable stuff. I can't believe how close this is this season. It's really all changed, and Singapore did it last year, didn't it? And it's done it again this year. Let's not forget, Valtteri Bottas still on a final warning. Any big mistake or any minor error that I think is inconvenienced him at scoring points or having a good opportunity, it will be disqualified. George Russell as well in that category as well. Final warning for George Russell. Any more of that, son, and you're out of here. A massive thanks as always goes out to Dan, formerly Mushy Gaming, currently just running under his own name of Dan Bartlett, for providing me with the scoreboard you see on your screen now, and of course for the intro, the outro and the driver icons that you see in the top corner of your screen as I discuss each driver. Oh, could forget of course F1 Games PlayStation, Mr. Dave for providing me with the Latifi of the Wii skits that you all know and love, and to Dominic Orlando for providing me with the voice of Nicholas Latifi, of course. The resident Canadian does not disappoint. I'll see you all next week then for the Japanesey Squeezy Grand Prix. I cannot wait for that one. It's a lovely circuit, a classic track. I hope it's a thriller. Drivers need to deliver. Some really need to calm themselves down. It's all going to play in this Cruel Room Championship because it's really not over, is it? There's a lot to fight for. So yeah, the main championship might be over, but the Cruel Room certainly isn't. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and as always, much love.